Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars. The Harmony's Edge was a peaceful research vessel. For the past 6 months, Jake and his crew had been studying plants on different worlds. It was quiet work, the kind that humanity had done for 3,000 years. "Captain, we're getting a message from Earth," said Lieutenant Amy Carter. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that always seemed curious about everything. "It's marked Priority 1, Jake nodded. Priority 1 messages were rare. In fact, he couldn't remember the last time he had received one. The galaxy had been peaceful for so long that emergencies simply didn't happen anymore. Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her plant samples. She was the ship's expert on alien plants, and she loved her work. "Maybe they found something interesting in the data we sent last week," she said with a smile. Commander Ryan Bell walked over from his station. He was older than the others, maybe 50, and he had served in Earth's defense forces before joining the research division. "I doubt it's about plants," he said quietly. "Something feels different today." Jake activated the communication system. Admiral Susan Hayes appeared on the screen. She was a stern woman with gray hair and serious eyes. Behind her, Jake could see other officers moving quickly around what looked like a command center. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Hayes said, "I need you to prepare your crew for some news. The Zephyrian Empire has declared war on humanity." The bridge went silent. Amy dropped the data pad she was holding. Lisa stopped working with her plants completely. Even Ryan, who had seen military action before, looked shocked. "War?" Jake asked. "Admiral, there hasn't been a war involving humans for 3,000 years. "Are you sure?" Admiral Hayes nodded. "The Zephyrian Empire controls 12 star systems. They have thousands of ships and millions of soldiers. 3 hours ago, they sent a message to Earth and every human colony. They want us to surrender within 72 hours. "But why?" Lisa asked. "We've never bothered anyone. We just study plants and farm and trade peacefully." According to their message, Admiral Hayes continued, "They believe humanity has dangerous potential. They think we're a threat to galactic stability." Ryan laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Dangerous potential? We haven't built a warship in over 2,000 years. Our biggest weapons are farming tools." Admiral Hayes looked at Ryan for a long moment. "Commander Bell, you served in the Defense Forces 20 years ago. Do you remember your training?" "Of course," Ryan said. "But that was just basic stuff. Nothing that could threaten an empire." "Report to Earth immediately," Admiral Hayes ordered. "All research vessels are being recalled. We have work to do." The message ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Jake looked at his crew. They all seemed confused and scared. Humanity had been peaceful for so long that most people had forgotten what war even meant. "Captain," Amy said slowly, "what are we going to do? The Zephyrians have thousands of ships. We don't even have weapons on this vessel." Jake sat down in his captain's chair. He had been commanding research ships for 15 years. Before that, he had been a farmer on Earth. War was something he had only read about in history books. "I guess we go back to Earth," he said. "Maybe the government will negotiate. Humans are good at talking. We've solved every problem through talking for 3,000 years." Lisa packed up her plant samples carefully. "I don't understand why they think we're dangerous," she said. "Look at us. We spend our time studying flowers and growing food. The most violent thing we do is pull weeds." Ryan was checking the ship's systems. "The thing is," he said quietly, "I remember some strange things from my training. There were areas of the Defense Academy that were off limits. Instructors who wouldn't answer certain questions. I always thought it was just old military habits." "What kind of questions?" Jake asked. "Questions about human history before the peace. Questions about why we stopped exploring certain areas of space. Questions about what happened to the weapons we used in the old wars." Amy plotted a course back to Earth. "The trip will take 3 days," she said. "What do you think we'll find when we get there?" Jake didn't answer. He was thinking about his grandfather, who had died when Jake was young. His grandfather had lived through the end of the last human war. Sometimes late at night, the old man would get a strange look in his eyes and talk about things that didn't make sense. "We became too good at it," his grandfather had said once. "That's why we stopped. We became too good at war." As a child, Jake had never understood what that meant. Humans had always been peaceful in his lifetime. They traded with aliens, studied science, and grew food. They were known throughout the galaxy as the quiet species that never caused trouble. But now, As the Harmony's edge turned toward Earth, Jake began to wonder. 3,000 years was a long time, long enough for people to forget things, long enough for secrets to be buried so deep that no one remembered they existed. The ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, and the stars became lines of light outside the windows. Somewhere behind them, the Zephyrian Empire was preparing for war. They probably thought it would be easy. After all, what could peaceful farmers and researchers do against a military empire? As they traveled through space, Jake noticed something odd. Other ships were moving toward Earth too. Lots of them. Ships he had never seen before, moving in patterns that looked almost military. But that was impossible. Humanity didn't have a military fleet, did they? Ryan was studying the sensor readings. "Captain," he said slowly, "I'm picking up some strange signals. It's like there's a whole network of communication that I never knew existed." "What kind of network?" Lisa asked. "I don't know. But it's big. Really big. And it's been running quietly well, it looks like it's been running for a very long time." Jake stared out at the stars. In 72 hours, the Zephyrian Empire expected humanity to surrender. They probably expected humans to beg for mercy or try to negotiate. They thought they were attacking a peaceful species that had forgotten how to fight. Maybe they were right. Or maybe, Jake thought as he watched more mysterious ships appear on their sensors, maybe the Zephyrians had made a very big mistake. President Karen White stood in the Oval Office, looking at the message from the Zephyrian Empire one more time. 72 hours to surrender. The aliens probably expected panic. They probably expected humans to run around screaming or begging for mercy. Instead, Karen smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that made her advisor step back. Even General Peter Brooks, who had known her for 20 years, felt a chill when he saw that expression. "Madam President," said Secretary of Defense Linda Ross, "the Galactic Council is asking for our response. Every alien species in the galaxy is watching to see what we'll do." Karen walked to her desk and activated the communication system. Within minutes, her message would reach every world in human space and every alien government in the galaxy. "People of Earth and citizens of the galaxy," she began, her voice calm and gentle. "The Zephyrian Empire has declared war on humanity. They have given us 72 hours to surrender." She paused, and that smile returned. "We had hoped that our long peace would be permanent. For 3,000 years, we have chosen the path of farmers and scientists. We have been your neighbors, your trading partners, your friends. But if the Zephyrians insist on war, then we will accommodate them." The transmission ended. Around the galaxy, alien leaders watched the recording again and again. There was something about that smile that didn't make sense. Humans were supposed to be peaceful. They were supposed to be weak. So why did President White look like she was looking forward to the war? On Earth, things began to change quickly. Admiral Hayes walked through the Defense Command Center, watching as systems that had been dormant for thousands of years came online. "Status report," she ordered. Colonel Dan Miller looked up from his control panel. "All peaceful farmer installations are responding." "The network is intact. Peaceful farmer installations?" asked Captain Sarah Kim, who had just arrived from a research station. "I've never heard of those." Admiral Hayes looked at her. "Captain, how long have you been in the service?" 15 years, ma'am. I've been commanding research vessels since I graduated from the academy. And in all that time, did you ever wonder why Earth has so many agricultural facilities? Why we need so many farms for a planet that trades for most of its food?" Sarah thought about it. I always assumed we were just very interested in farming." Admiral Hayes led her to a window that looked out over the countryside. In the distance, what looked like ordinary farm buildings were beginning to change. Walls were sliding away. Towers were rising from underground. The peaceful farmland was transforming into something else entirely. "Those aren't farms, Captain. They're weapons platforms. The most advanced weapons platforms ever built. We've been disguising them as farms for over 2,000 years. Sarah stared in shock. But why? We've been at peace." "Yes," Admiral Hayes said, "because we chose peace. But choice only means something if you have other options." Across human space, similar transformations were happening. The agricultural ship Harmony's Edge, where Captain Morrison and his crew were traveling back to Earth, suddenly felt different. Commander Ryan Bell was walking through sections of the ship he had been on hundreds of times when he noticed something strange. "Lisa," he called to Dr. Park, "come look at this." Lisa came over and found Ryan staring at what looked like a normal wall. But there were small lines in the metal that hadn't been there before. It looks like there's something behind this wall, Lisa said. Ryan touched one of the lines and suddenly the wall began to slide away. Behind it was a room full of equipment that none of them had ever seen. Control panels with displays showing star charts and weapon systems. Computers running programs that looked like military software. "This is impossible," Lisa whispered. "This is a research ship, is it?" Ryan asked. He was remembering more things from his military training. Questions that instructors wouldn't answer. Areas of ships that were off limits. Training exercises that seemed too advanced for a peaceful species. Jake Morrison's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All crew report to the bridge immediately." When they arrived, they found Jake standing in front of a large display that hadn't been there that morning. The wall had opened to reveal screens and controls that made the bridge look like a military command center. "Captain," Amy said slowly, "what's happening to our ship?" Jake looked at his crew. They all seemed confused and a little scared. He felt the same way. "I've been getting reports from Earth," he said. "It seems that a lot of things we thought we knew about humanity aren't exactly true." The main screen showed a view of space around Earth. But instead of the peaceful planet they all remembered, Earth was surrounded by structures that definitely weren't there before. Orbital platforms, weapon satellites, ships that looked like nothing any of them had ever seen. According to Admiral Hayes, Jake continued, humanity never stopped building weapons. We just got very good at hiding them. Ryan was checking the ship's new systems. Captain, according to these readings, this ship has enough firepower to destroy a small moon. That's impossible, Lisa said. I've been on this ship for 3 years. I know every room, every system. This is a research vessel. Look at your laboratory, Jake suggested. Lisa ran to her lab and found that it too had changed. Her equipment for studying plants was still there, but now there were additional machines she had never seen before. Machines for analyzing alien biology. Machines for creating compounds that looked suspiciously like weapons. She ran back to the bridge. Jake, I think my plant research, I think it might have been something else all along. Jake nodded grimly. According to the files I'm reading, every plant sample we've collected has been used to develop biological weapons tailored to different alien species. Amy was staring at the navigation system. Captain, these star charts show human colonies in places I've never heard of. There are dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. Hidden colonies? Ryan asked. Hidden everything, Jake said. Hidden weapons, hidden ships, hidden colonies. It looks like for 3,000 years, while everyone thought we were peaceful farmers, we were actually building the most advanced military in galactic history. Lisa sat down heavily. But why? Why would we do this and not tell anyone? Why keep it secret even from our own people? Jake looked at the display showing Earth's defenses. More structures were appearing every minute as camouflage systems shut down and revealed what had been hidden underneath. Maybe, he said slowly, because the kind of people who would build weapons like this aren't the kind of people who should be allowed to use them, unless they absolutely have to. On the main screen, they could see other ships like theirs throughout human space, research vessels and cargo ships and passenger liners, all revealing their true nature as advanced warships. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The Zephyrians wanted to fight humanity, Ryan said quietly. I think they're about to find out what that really means. Jake looked at his crew. They had all spent years thinking they were simple researchers and explorers. Now they were discovering they had been warriors all along. Whether they knew it or not, somewhere in space the Zephyrian fleet was approaching. Expecting to fight peaceful farmers, they were in for a surprise. Commander Zektar of the Zephyrian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the sensor readings with growing confidence. His fleet of 300 ships was approaching the human research vessel that had been spotted near the border. It would be an easy first victory. The humans have just one small ship, reported his weapons officer. It appears to be some kind of science vessel. No weapons detected. Zektar felt pleased. The intelligence reports had been correct. Humans really were as weak as they appeared. This war would be over quickly. Send them a surrender demand, he ordered. Tell them they can avoid destruction if they submit to Zephyrian authority. On the bridge of what was once called the Harmony's Edge, Captain Jake Morrison received the alien message. The ship's computer had automatically translated it into English. Jake looked at his crew, all of whom were still getting used to their vessel's true nature. They want us to surrender, he told them. Lieutenant Amy Carter was studying the weapon systems that had been hidden for so long. "Captain, according to these readings, we could destroy their entire fleet without breaking a sweat. That seems impossible," said Dr. Lisa Park. She was still trying to understand how her plant research had been part of humanity's secret weapons program. "There are 300 ships out there." Commander Ryan Bell was learning to use the tactical display. "Actually, Lisa, I think Amy might be right. These weapon systems, I've never seen anything like them. They're not just advanced. They're like something from a science fiction story." Jake made his decision. He activated the communication system and sent a response to the Zephyrian commander. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earth vessel Silent Thunder. You have declared war on humanity. We tried to avoid this moment for 3,000 years. But if this is what you want, then this is what you'll get." Commander Zektar was confused by the human response. "Silent Thunder? Our sensors show a research vessel called Harmony's Edge." "Sir?" his sensor officer said nervously. "Something's happening to the human ship." On the main screen, they watched as the small research vessel began to change. The outer hull was shifting, revealing a sleek, dark design underneath. Weapon ports were opening along its sides. The ship was growing larger as hidden sections extended outward. Within minutes, the peaceful research vessel had become something that looked like death itself, had taken the shape of a spaceship. "Impossible," Zektar whispered. "Our intelligence said humans don't have warships." The human ship was now 3 times its original size, black as space itself, and covered with weapons that the Zephyrian computers couldn't even identify. "Sir," the weapons officer said with fear in his voice, "our sensors still can't lock onto it. It's like it's not really there." Jake Morrison looked at his crew. They were all staring at the displays showing the Zephyrian fleet. 300 ships against 1. In the old days, that would have been hopeless odds. But these weren't the old days. "Amy," Jake said calmly, "show our guests what human engineering looks like." Amy activated the weapons systems. The Silent Thunder's main guns began to charge, and space around them started to glow with energy patterns that looked almost like art. The first shots weren't meant to destroy. They were meant to demonstrate. Beams of pure energy reached out from the human ship and touched 12 Zephyrian vessels. The alien ships didn't explode. Instead, they simply stopped working. Their power went out. Their weapons went dead. Their engines shut down. "What did you do to them?" Lisa asked in amazement. "According to the computer," Amy said, reading from her display, "we hit them with something called a system disruption beam. It shuts down all electronic systems without damaging the hull or hurting the crew." Ryan was watching the tactical display. "The other Zephyrian ships are trying to return fire." Hundreds of energy blasts and missiles streaked toward the Silent Thunder. But something strange happened. Some of the weapons simply vanished before they reached the human ship. Others turned around and flew back toward the ships that had fired them. Still others changed into harmless light shows that painted beautiful colors across space. "Defensive systems," Jake said with wonder. "We have defensive systems that turn enemy weapons into art." On the Zephyrian flagship, Commander Zektar was trying to understand what he was seeing. His weapons were being turned into light displays. His ships were being disabled by touches of energy that his sensors couldn't even detect properly. "All ships retreat to safe distance," he ordered. "We need to report this to command." But it was too late for retreat. The Silent Thunder's next attack wasn't gentle. The human ship fired something that looked like liquid starlight. The beam reached out and touched one of the larger Zephyrian warships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the alien ship began to come apart at the molecular level. It didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply dissolved into its basic elements, which scattered across space in patterns so beautiful they looked like fireworks made of atoms themselves. Amy checked her readings. The weapon broke down the ship's molecular bonds. The crew was transported to the nearest habitable planet before the ship was destroyed. "They're alive, but their ship is, well, it's now part of a rather pretty nebula." Jake stared at the display. "We have weapons that kill ships but save the crews?" "Apparently," Ryan said. "And that's just the beginning. According to this manual, we have weapons that can rewrite the laws of physics in small areas of space. We have missiles that can think and make moral decisions. We have shields that don't just stop enemy attacks, they improve them and send them back as gifts." Lisa looked sick. "What kind of people build weapons like this?" "The kind of people," Jake said quietly, "who never want to use them." The kind of people who make war so terrible that no one in their right mind would choose it. Commander Zektar watched his fleet being systematically disabled. Some ships were shut down peacefully. Others were destroyed in ways that were so beautiful, they made his aesthetic sensors overload. A few were somehow transformed into art installations that would probably be studied by philosophers for centuries. But the most terrifying thing was that the human ship wasn't even trying hard. According to his sensors, it was using maybe 1% of its actual capabilities. "Sir," his communication officer said, "we're receiving another message from the humans." Jake Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. He looked calm, almost peaceful, but there was something in his eyes that made Commander Zektar want to hide. "Commander," Jake said politely, "this is what one small human research vessel can do. We have thousands of ships like this. We have weapons you can't imagine. We have defensive systems that make your attacks look like children's toys, but we don't want to use them." Jake paused, and his expression became even more peaceful. Somehow that made it more terrifying. "Go back to your empire," he continued. "Tell them what you've seen here. Tell them that humanity tried to choose peace for 3,000 years. Tell them that we built these weapons not because we wanted to use them, but because we wanted to never have to use them." Another pause. "And tell them that if they insist on continuing this war, they will discover that the only thing worse than fighting humanity is making humanity fight seriously." The transmission ended. Commander Zektar looked at what remained of his fleet. Half his ships were disabled. The others were too frightened to move. And the human vessel was just sitting there, waiting patiently for him to make a decision. For the first time in his military career, Commander Zektar gave the order to retreat. Emperor Vaskaran of the Zephyrian Empire listened to Commander Zektar's report with growing disbelief. The commander described weapons that turned ships into art, defensive systems that made enemy attacks into gifts, and humans who smiled while they destroyed entire fleets. "You're telling me," the Emperor said slowly, "that one human research vessel defeated 300 of our ships?" "Not defeated, sir," Zektar replied, his voice still shaking. "Played with. They could have destroyed us all in seconds, but they chose not to. It was like watching an adult deal with annoying children." The Emperor turned to his military advisors. "How is this possible? Our intelligence report said humans were peaceful farmers." General Morton, the Empire's military leader, pulled up holographic displays. "Sir, we've been analyzing sensor data from across the galaxy. It appears that human agricultural installations on hundreds of worlds are actually disguised weapons platforms. Their research vessels are advanced warships. Their entire civilization has been a military deception." The Emperor felt a chill run through his scaled skin. "How long?" "According to our analysis, at least 2,000 years. Maybe longer. Sir, we think humanity has been quietly building the most advanced military force in galactic history while pretending to be harmless farmers." On Earth, Admiral Hayes stood in the Defense Command Center, watching reports come in from across human space. The Zephyrian Empire was mobilizing everything they had. 10,000 ships, 1,000,000 soldiers, allies from 6 other species who were terrified by reports of human capabilities. "Status of our defenses?" she asked. Colonel Miller looked up from his console. "All Garden Protocol installations are online. We have planet killer satellites positioned around every major alien world. They've been there for over 1,000 years, disguised as weather monitoring stations." Captain Sarah Kim was still trying to understand the scope of humanity's deception. "Admiral, how many people knew about this?" "More than you might think," Admiral Hayes replied. "Every farmer who worked the fields above weapons platforms, every researcher who developed dual-use technologies, every engineer who built agricultural ships with hidden weapon systems. We didn't lie to our people, Captain. We just didn't tell them everything." On the bridge of the Silent Thunder, Captain Morrison was receiving updates from Earth. The Zephyrian Empire had declared total war. They were coming with everything they had. "How many ships are we talking about?" asked Lieutenant Carter. Jake checked the reports. 10,000 Zephyrian warships, plus support fleets from their allies. Maybe 15,000 ships total. Dr. Park looked worried. "That's a lot of ships. Even with our advanced weapons, how can we fight that many enemies?" Commander Bell was studying the tactical displays. "Lisa, I don't think you understand yet. Look at this." He showed her a map of the galaxy with small blue dots scattered throughout. There were thousands of them. Each of those dots is a human installation, Hidden colonies, disguised weapons platforms, concealed shipyards. For 2,000 years we've been quietly spreading across the galaxy. But that's impossible, Lisa said. I would have known about human colonies. Would you? Jake asked gently. How many uninhabited worlds have you visited for research? How many systems did you survey that seemed empty? Lisa thought about it. Over her career, she had visited dozens of worlds that seemed to have no intelligent life. But now that she thought about it, there had always been small things that didn't make sense. Perfect agricultural conditions, atmospheric compositions that seemed too good to be natural, plant life that grew in suspiciously organized patterns. You're saying all those worlds had hidden human populations? Amy was checking communication logs. According to this, we have a faster-than-light communication network connecting all human installations. It's been running for over 1,500 years. We could coordinate military actions across the entire galaxy in real time. Jake felt overwhelmed by the scale of what he was learning. How many humans are there, really? The computer answered his question. Current human population across all installations, approximately 200 billion individuals. The bridge went silent. Official records said humanity had 12 billion people living on Earth and a few dozen colonies. We've been hiding the existence of 180 billion people? Lisa asked weakly. Hidden in plain sight, Jake said. Disguised as uninhabited worlds, research stations, and agricultural facilities. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian fleet was approaching Earth. Emperor Vascaron had come personally to oversee humanity's destruction. He stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, surrounded by more firepower than had been assembled in galactic history. Sir, his sensor officer reported, we're detecting some unusual readings from the Sol system. What kind of readings? Well, sir, it appears that Earth's moon isn't natural. It's artificial, and it's huge inside, like someone hollowed it out and filled it with machinery. The Emperor studied the sensor data. The moon showed massive power signatures and what appeared to be weapon systems that could crack planets. What about Earth's sun? He asked. Sir, there are structures around the sun that we can't identify. They appear to be collecting and redirecting solar energy for some purpose. General Morton was studying his own displays. Emperor, I'm reading defensive installations throughout the entire solar system. Not just around Earth, around every planet, every asteroid, every piece of space debris larger than a fighter craft. As the Zephyrian fleet entered the solar system, they began to understand the true scope of humanity's preparations. The entire system had been converted into a fortress. Every celestial body had been modified. Even the space between planets was filled with hidden defensive platforms. Sir, the communications officer said nervously, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. President White appeared on the screen, wearing the same gentle smile she had shown before. Behind her, the Oval Office looked exactly as peaceful as always. Emperor Vascaron, she said politely. Welcome to Earth, we've been expecting you. Surrender now, the Emperor demanded, and your people will be treated fairly. President White's smile didn't change. Emperor, I think there's something you should understand about our situation. We've been preparing for this moment for 3,000 years. Every day of peace was another day to build better defenses. Every year without war was another year to perfect weapons we hoped we'd never use. She gestured. And the view behind her changed to show the space around Earth. Weapons platforms were becoming visible as their camouflage system shut down. The moon was opening like a flower, revealing weapon systems that boggled the mind. You brought 10,000 ships, President White continued. That's very impressive. But I'm afraid you're about to discover that when humanity decides to fight, we don't do it halfway. The view changed again, showing star charts with human installations throughout the galaxy. There were thousands of them, all connecting through communication networks that made faster-than-light travel look primitive. You see, Emperor, you're not just fighting Earth, you're fighting a civilization that spans half the galaxy. A civilization that has spent millennia becoming very, very good at protecting peace. The Emperor stared at the displays. Humanity hadn't just been hiding weapons. They had been building an empire while pretending to be harmless farmers. The battle will begin in exactly 17 minutes, President White said, still smiling. I thought you should know what you're really fighting before it starts. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian fleet alone with the terrifying knowledge that they had declared war on the galaxy's most dangerous species. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes, Emperor Vascaron watched his magnificent fleet of 10,000 ships face the defenses of humanity's solar system. What he saw was not a battle. It was a demonstration of power so overwhelming that his military computers couldn't calculate odds anymore. Human weapons didn't just destroy enemy ships. They did it with an artistry that was both beautiful and terrifying. Energy beams that painted spirals of light across space before reducing entire squadrons to their component atoms. Missiles that sang ancient Earth songs as they tracked targets with impossible precision. Defensive fields that caught enemy fire and transformed it into works of art that would be studied for centuries. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, voice shaking, "our heaviest bombardment can't even scratch their smallest defensive platform." The Emperor watched as a human weapon reached out and touched his flagship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every system on his ship was rewritten. His weapons became tools for growing flowers. His engines became music generators. His communication system started broadcasting poetry. Across the battle zone, similar things were happening to other Zephyrian ships. Some were disabled peacefully. Others were transformed into mobile art galleries. A few were converted into rescue vessels that immediately began helping damaged ships from their own fleet. But the most terrifying moment came when Earth's moon opened completely. Inside was a weapon so large it dwarfed entire fleets. The weapon charged up, energy building to levels that made the Emperor's sensors scream warnings. Then it fired. The beam reached out past the Zephyrian fleet, past the edge of the solar system, across dozens of light years of space. When it struck its target, a dead star suddenly blazed back to life, becoming a new sun for a distant world that had been cold and dark for millions of years. They just restarted a star," the Emperor whispered, "as a demonstration." On the silent thunder, Captain Morrison and his crew watched the battle from a safe distance. They were learning more about humanity's true capabilities with each passing minute. "Jake," Dr. Park said quietly, "that weapon that restarted the star, according to these readings, it used less than 1% of the moon's total power." Lieutenant Carter was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. "Captain, I'm getting reports from human installations everywhere. It's not just us. Every hidden human world is revealing itself. The Zephyrians and their allies are facing the same kind of demonstration on hundreds of different fronts." Commander Bell was studying tactical data. "The pattern is always the same. Overwhelming force used with perfect precision. No unnecessary destruction. No civilian casualties. The humans are showing that they can end any threat while maintaining their moral principles." After 17 minutes, every enemy ship in the solar system had been disabled or converted to humanitarian purposes. The Zephyrian fleet was still intact, but none of their weapons worked anymore. Instead, their ships were broadcasting signals of peace, playing music and dispensing medical supplies to anyone who needed them. Emperor Vascaron received a communication request from Earth. When he accepted it, President White appeared on his screen. She was still smiling, that gentle, terrifying smile. "Emperor," she said politely, "I hope this demonstration has been educational." "How?" the Emperor asked. "How did you hide all this? How did you build an empire without anyone knowing?" "We didn't build an empire," President White corrected. "We built a defense network. For 3,000 years, we've been quietly protecting the galaxy from threats while pretending to be harmless farmers. Every aggressive species that vanished mysteriously. Every war that ended suddenly without explanation. Every plague that was cured by natural causes. That was us." The Emperor felt something he had never experienced before, complete and total helplessness. "What do you want?" he asked. "The same thing we've always wanted," President White replied. "Peace, but now you understand what that peace really means. It means that humanity is willing to bear the burden of being the galaxy's guardians. It means we're prepared to stop any threat to galactic stability, whether that threat comes from aggressive empires, or natural disasters, or cosmic events." Admiral Hayes appeared beside the president. "Emperor, we've been monitoring your empire for over 1,000 years. We know about the slave worlds. We know about the genocides. We know about the plans to conquer other species. We've been preparing for this moment since your empire first began expanding. You've been watching us for 1,000 years? We've been watching everyone," President White said. "The galaxy is full of species that could become threats. Some we've guided toward peace through subtle influence. Others we've removed quietly when they became too dangerous. Your empire was too big to remove quietly, so we waited until you forced our hand." The Emperor looked at his disabled fleet. What happens now? Now you have a choice, President White said. You can accept the new reality and work with us to build a better galaxy, or you can continue to fight, and we'll demonstrate what our weapons look like when we stop being gentle. As if to emphasize the point, Earth's moon rotated to reveal weapon systems that made the star restarting device look small. Choose quickly, Admiral Hayes added. The galaxy is watching and they need to know what the new rules are. 1 year later, Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Silent Thunder, now serving as a diplomatic vessel. Dr. Park was beside him, still studying plants, but now openly working on projects that help terraform worlds for refugee populations. Do you ever miss the old days? She asked. When we thought we were just simple researchers? Jake considered the question. Sometimes, but look at what we've accomplished. Through the window they could see a space station where dozens of alien species worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Zephirian engineers worked alongside human scientists to develop new technologies. Former slave worlds were being restored by joint task forces. The galaxy's first interspecies university was under construction nearby. The galaxy is safer now, Jake said. Everyone knows the rules. Everyone knows that there's a species willing to enforce peace. But more importantly, everyone knows that we don't want to rule them. We just want to protect them. Commander Bell joined them at the window. Report from Earth, he said. The last of the aggressive species has been convinced to adopt peaceful policies. The galaxy is officially stable for the first time in recorded history. Lieutenant Carter came over with the latest communication logs, and it only took humanity revealing that we've been the secret guardians of galactic civilization for 3,000 years. Dr. Park laughed. When you put it like that, it sounds almost simple. Jake smiled. Maybe it was simple. Maybe the real secret was that someone had to be willing to be the monsters so that no one else would have to be. Outside the window, alien children played in the station's gardens while their parents worked on projects that would benefit species across the galaxy. It was peaceful. It was beautiful. And everyone knew that this peace was protected by a species that smiled while they fought, that turned warfare into art, and that had spent 3,000 years becoming so good at violence that they could afford to choose peace. The Emperor Vaskran, now serving as an ambassador rather than a conqueror, often visited the station. He had learned to appreciate humanity's approach to galactic governance. They didn't rule through fear or force. They ruled through the simple understanding that peace was worth protecting at any cost. As he watched human children play with alien children, all of them safe and happy, he realized something profound. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had saved it from itself, and they had done it with a smile.